Pleasure to welcome all of you for the last day of FDP program, Agriculture, Environment and Climate Change, organized by VHNSN College and Pearl Foundation. It's my honor to welcome Professor Dr. K. Muthuchelian Sir, Pro-Vice-Chancellor of Dayananda Sagar University and former Vice-Chancellor of Periyar University in Tamil Nadu. He is a well-known biology scientist who is going to be deliver the topic about biodiversity and global climate change. Sir, let me hand over the session to you, sir.
So today, as I mentioned, that the answer from the remote village that what we have the climate is not now, and it has impact on the total the biological diversity. So see this one, you can see the blue beauty of the earth. I think you could see all the coloring, the pattern inside the both globes. One, you could see that blue color, the red color, and then green, brown. All this you could see in both the globe. So this is a picture which was taken by NASA, and see that these are the beauty of the earth, and it means it has all the beautiful the biodiversity panorama of the globe. So it mentioned where it has been shown that the ocean is there, and then the forest is there, the land mass is there, and all together you could see the variety of the ecosystem in the entire global level. You can see that, and this picture was not taken by now. It was taken during 70s. During 70s, or I could say that even before 70s, it was taken. Now all has been changed because of the climate change. See this Englishman. You could see that complete because of what we are having, the temperature, the effects we call the global warming. You could see the face of the Englishman, and see almost his nose, and then the face almost is a tone. So the Michael Jackson is even shown because of what the climbing, the global warming, the effects or the raising of the temperature in the earth, which has happened. Don't think that only for the Englishman it will happen. It will also happen to our Shreya, also our Vijay, our Amitabh Bachchan, and altogether everyone has the same scenario. See this. The picture, you could see that both the eyeballs are melting because of the rise in the temperature. I think soon, our both eyeballs will melt soon. This will happen in coming decades because of the climate change, or otherwise called the temperature rise in the earth. And another one, you can see that the fish fishing out from the ocean, you could see that both the Englishmen, they could not bear the temperature of the fish fishing out from the ocean. Almost it is in the melting stage. That means the high temperature will lead to not only it affects the terrestrial and also the marine ecosystem, and see that the bottom and they could not bear the temperature of the fish once after fishing. I think now hereafter not necessary to bring the fish to the home and then to process, and then you have to put everything and boil, and then later you either fry it or making the soup or etc. Now once after buying it from the market, just you can blow from your mouth, the hot air comes from your mouth will quite sufficient to boil the fish, and then the cooked fish is ready. Only thing what you have is here you have to do is only to paste the masala. That's all. You'll have the fried, I think, the fish. I think, see the making. Now we used to, earlier we used to make the full boil only in the pan, in the stove, the LPG stove or any other cooking. The vessel we used to need that. Now it is all not necessary. No LPG, nothing, no firewood and all that. Just you can make the full boil yet without heating pan. See this, the egg laid on the heat, and then they feel that in a vegetable the things and the cave, and it has been completely fully boiled stage. So next is the apple. The apple putting on the placing it on the table, almost it's melted. So don't think that only the apple will melt and then all our guava, banana will also melt soon in the coming decades. There is rabbit. The rabbit cannot, not able to eat their own food, carrot. So almost both are in the dying conditions because of the warming effects. It is next to the frog. The frog sitting on the rock, you could see that almost the color pigments almost is melted. You could see that in the melting stage of the pigments in the upper the face of the frog. Not only the frog sitting on the rock and then also sitting on the stick also will melt soon in the coming decades because of the global warming. And don't think that if you are using your desktop or mobile or any other the material, and then see that here almost your computer is melting soon. Such a metal complex and then the glass and everything, it's also having the effect to melt it soon. You could see that in that. So your computer screen will also melt soon. Next, come to your mobile. Soon your mobile will also melt soon. So don't think that I am putting mobile in my bag, in my handbag, or any place you have the pouch or anything that will, or even the Android telephone, Android mobile also will melt soon. You could see that because of the temperature rise in the world. And my own watch, this is my fossil watch I am wearing now. This watch is also will melt soon. Such a metal alloy also will have to melt soon because of the rise in temperature. And think that how the temperature has a make effect of this metal alloy to melt. And then now next is the all the statues. I think hereafter there will not be any conflict or the problem will rise because of the statues. So the history to melt soon because of the temperature or the global warming. So these are all what I projected. Maybe it's all imaginary, but it will be a cautionary to everyone that the temperature rise is here. Still a phenomena in the coming decades, even the coming centuries, we have to face in near future. So all together because of what means that climate change. So the human induced. The human is the main culprit of the climate change, which caused by the emissions of the greenhouse gases, which are mainly the carbon dioxide. You know that the main source of the carbon dioxide from the anthropogenic emissions of the carbon dioxide from the fossil fuels, mainly coal, oil, and gas. These are the primary source of the combustion, which leads to the emission from the coal, oil, and the gas we call as the fossil fuels. And the secondary cause of the emission of the carbon dioxide is from the land use change, the clearing of the lands under the tropical deforestation. So altogether, the greenhouse gases, so methane, nitrous oxide, and troposphere ozone, which all having energy and agricultural sources, which are all having in turn will change the climate. That is called the climate change. So the rising of the level of the greenhouse gases of this carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and troposphere ozone will have a change in the climate soon. So this climate change also having a lot of changes in that, which exacerbates the frequency and intensity of the first. It will have an impact on the hydrometeorological disasters, which is main. And this climate change can add the new disaster, the risk also now we have been facing. So all this DRM includes the seismic activity, volcanoes, while CC, that is the climate change, also address the gradual average of changes altogether in the climate. So now the DRM and CC adaptation greatly, when is overlap, can strategically reinforce the each other. And what it means that having a direct effect that we are going to see individually what happens in the climate change in later. The mainly what we have been focusing now is everyone, even from the school standards, I think now everyone knows that the change in the climate will have an impact on the sea level rise, the temperature rise. As I mentioned, the change in the precipitation, the rainfall. And then other than that, we have the natural hazards also, which including earthquakes and then tsunami also. So these are the extreme effects which have also had the effects and impacts on the total scenario of the global level. So we have been now focusing more on the cities. Why? Because the cities are disproportionately contribute to the climate change, the climate change, and what we require is the mitigation. Because altogether, the first the population, I mean, more than 50% of the population who are inhabited in the area of the cities are they are going to face the first problem of the the gas emissions, nearly 80%. That's why I mean, all these things, the cities disproportionately suffer the impacts of the climate change rather than the rural areas and also the disasters. So what we require is the adoption. So adaptation is most important. So cities are all now in front of in terms of the what we require is the preventive action and the emergency preparedness when compared to the countries. So here you can see that the urban poor at greatest risk. You can see that. So what can the local government do all these things? You could see this pictures. So is your city a hotspot? Every city in the world now become hot. So the vulnerability will be different to the consequence of the climate change in the urban areas. So what we require is the preparedness and the response capacity to different the natural hazards in the urban sectors. So what are in quote we call as the primer, which cause for that main. So the hotspot exercise is, I think, you can see that starts from the resilient to the hot is in a direction of that. You can see the coloring pattern of that is mild, and then finally moderate, and then to the severe to the hot. So altogether, it has given in quote is the what the geographical location, the city size and growth rate. It depends on why it has been exercised more impact on the cities, and then total the governance structure, and then disaster history. So altogether, what it has been influenced is when we required is the city management, the financial resources, and build the conducive environment with in reference to the disaster response. And then altogether we have a problem to the economic impact of the disasters. So the main is the focus is the radiation. So the incoming solar radiation is absorbed and Earth the radiates infrared to the again back to the atmosphere, and this atmosphere absorbs the Earth radiation, and finally it has the warming effect we call as the greenhouse. So this result in increased the average temperature across the globe, which in turn disturb the natural ecosystem and change our climate. You could see that this phenomena is well known to everyone. So as I mentioned, this is the blue beauty. Now everything is changing. Where? So this is one best example which I would like to mention here called is a methane cow. So it was first example where that greenhouse gas emissions has happened to the area where the problem started in the Mexico and then some of the regions, South American countries. And I think most of the people have been inhabited in the area where more of the farming system along with the cattle population in there. So you could see that, and then there is a cow here, and in the rural ecosystem in the Mexico and other farming areas, and once they felt that was a suffocation of the oxygen inside the house, and later all the people have come out from the house, and then they felt that they could not even they do the normal requirement of the oxygen due to the suffocation of the atmospheric oxygen. And they, I mean, the local government has been given the task to the scientists. What will be the reason why the people have been suffered because of this, the less, availability of the oxygen in and around the ecosystem. They found at last that it's all because of the cows. The cows. It's a very simple phenomena. They did the experiment, and I think every cattle, the problem. The digestive system, the phenomena that all the cellulose materials once it eat, the grass or anything, the vegetables, etc., and later will bring again back to the mouth and then reach you eat and then breathe, and then we will bring it again to the alimentary canal for the digestion, and then finally to the absorption. So during that process, a lot of methane, was evolved. So they find it that And this, I think, with the simple the balloon, I think they tied in their in the cow, and they could find that within 4 hours of the time, and then a single cow can almost fill the methane gas which comes out from the mouth. They have been experimented, and later they found that because of the thickly populated animal house, animal herds in that area, has leads to the problem of the methane, and that leads to the suffocation in that area, and then later they dispersed. So this is the one which the methane has taken a lead role in that. And not only that, the methane also nowadays has been released very near to the rural areas where most of the ladies they used to go to the snake, supposed to be called the snake house. Earlier it was not the snake house, it was the termite house. It was built by the termites with the soil in and around that, and later the snake occupied that place. And most of our Indian the women, they used to go there, and then they used to pour the turmeric and ginger along with the milk. They used to pour, and they used to worship the termite house as the mother of God for them. And that also now has been seriously viewed that the termite, the house also supposed to be the snake house we call, also has the ability to release a lot of methane in and around that the termite house. So be care that, and hereafter you should not go very near to them, and that also is a serious problem there. So even many agricultural fields also, when you are keeping open and barren, that also releases a lot of methane, and we found in the many experiments in the Indian subcontinent. So altogether, these greenhouse gases, or we call as the greenhouse gases, this leads to a lot of problems in the climate change. Number one, the temperature. Yes, influence on the temperature. Number two will be change in the rainfall pattern, the rainfall frequency, and altogether. And then we call it the precipitation. And third is the sea level rise altogether. So which all three phenomenal effects because of the climate change has an impact, a serious impact on the health. So first one, the health, all the weather-related mortality, the infectious diseases, the air quality, respiratory illness, all will happen because of these problems associated with these, the greenhouse gases, and consequently the temperature rise, precipitation, sea level rise, that too. So even the chikungunya and then many other diseases what we have all now, all because of the weather-related phenomena, and it will come in a season. And then also we used to say that there's a specific the eye disease, or we call it the Madras eye, that also will come in season, and that virus will cause problem for only a couple of days, and then it will go. It's all related to the environment and the climate. And next one is the agriculture. It has also a serious impact on the crop yield, the productivity of both the cereals, pulses, and all, and every crop, including the horticultural crops and also the forest trees, etc. And this leads to the changes in the agriculture and then phenomena, and then water resources. And finally, it has a problem, serious impact on the supply of the water, the quality of the water, and then the competition of the water. Even we used to say that if third world war comes, it will because of the water. So this all having serious problem of the temperature, sea level rise, and precipitation. Even the earlier the lectures were delivered in yesterday, they meant for that the water is most important, and one way India is facing the two serious consequences of that. One is a heavy flooding, and then another one is the more drought. So all these problems are related to the what you call the temperature, precipitation, and then other relations. Then fourth one is the coastal areas. So it also affects the marine ecosystem, the erosion of the beaches, and then inundation of the coastal lands, then additional cost to the protected areas of the coastal communities, etc. And then also has a serious problem in the bleaching of the coral reefs too. And finally, the species and natural areas where it has a loss to the total biodiversity, both flora, fauna, and including the microorganisms. So it has a serious impacts of the climate change on every part of the ecosystem levels. So this climate change is an environmental and developmental issue which threatens number one to the environmental sustainability and poverty alleviation, and then it changed the livelihood of the poor people, and then human health, and then also the national and the regional security. So it also has been focused, everyone knows that it changes the additional pressure to the entire the physical and biological systems. And number one, it reduced the thickness and extent of the Arctic ice, and have been Arctic ice, everyone has been, now it has been focused. And then already 60,000 non-polar glaciers are in the retreat. And then due to that, the timing of the reproduction or the migration events occurs both in the plants and animals, the length of the growing season of the crops, and then species distribution, the population. More to that, as I mentioned, the pests and diseases also we have here, outbreaks also have been, noticed here. So altogether, as I mentioned, coral bleaching too. So the climate change is a very serious phenomenon with reference to the from 1900, our Indian meteorological the research station, they have conducted a lot of experiments with reference to the current climate and variability. And the first picture you can see that the surface temperature has been varied from, I think you can see that all together, and say what they concluded that the warming trend is 0.3 degrees centigrade per 100 years. So that was the projection they made it, and with the experimental data from the meteorological research station. And what they specially that identified that the significant warming trend in the west coast, and then in the central India, and then also in the interior peninsula over the northeast India. And they also observed that the cooling trend also observed in the northwest India and some in the south India. So even within an area of the global level, a rapid changes we could observe in the surface the temperature levels. And see, in the micro condition, we observe the temperature relation phenomena in the Madurai city, south the Tamil Nadu. And here, from 1940 onwards, we could see that the temperature, I think, is increasing, is in arithmetic ratio. Up to 2015, we measured that the temperature is progressively increasing. That we measured that even in the microclimatic conditions of the south of Tamil Nadu, Madurai city. So this is one of the best examples for the local climatic changes. And even the maximum temperature, during measured during the April, we call it the Agni Nakshatra period. We measured in 2000 between and 2000, almost 10 years. You could see the lot of increase of the temperature. We could find two peaks. One in during the 2004, it was high temperature reached to 42 degree. So 42 degree is not the optimum temperature or the ambient temperature of the Madurai city. Earlier it was only maximum to 37. It was maximum 37. Now I think we could observe that 42. So altogether, the South India now is facing the temperature as equal to the desert temperatures. So next to the change is the monsoon level. I think variable trend in the monsoon level. Even every year, we used to see that the monsoon rainfall is changing, and then monsoons have been result in the drought, and sometimes winters in the rainfall lead to the flood. So altogether, as I mentioned, so both are the phenomena which occur in the north and southern part of the India. So what they mentioned is the increasing trend in the west coast, North Andhra Pradesh and northwest India over plus 10 to 12% in the normal 100 years they observed, and then decreasing of the monsoon level have been observed in Madhya Pradesh and adjoining areas, and also the northeast India, part of the Gujarat, including the Kerala in the Western Ghats, to a level of -6 to the -8% of the normal 100 years. So we could see that extreme rainfall events all over the India. So altogether, what they mentioned have been observed in the couple of 100 years. From that, the increase in the greenhouse gas concentrations. The increase in the greenhouse gas concentration may lead to the overall increase in the rainfall intensity by 1 to 4 mm per day, with an increase in the highest one day rainfall over a major part of the Indian region may be up to 20 cm per day. So I think this is the picture they have shown that now an astonishing figure, I think, is a very threatening to that, an alarming situation to India is that we supposed to read, we used to say always Cherrapunji. Cherrapunji is one of the highest in terms of the frequency, and altogether we have the rainfall. Even that area also now face a lot of problem, and because of the various other deforestation and then the shift form agriculture system, and finally leads to the poor in terms of the frequency of the rainfall in Cherrapunji, and now at their level has been decreased to very, very low in the Cherrapunji area, supposed to be the world, the highest rainfall, the region. So altogether, it also has the other associated climate change. And one which I would like to mention is the one important is the poleward shift of the animal and plant ranges. And because of the climate change, the animal and the plants are shifting from one pole to another pole. So that is the highlight of the climate change they mentioned. Of course, other, I think we have all known that. So this leads to a lot of, I think, the very, very, the stage, the phenomena now it has been looked, and then the flowering. In agriculture, most of the agriculture cross species are in early framing. The flowering, it also indicate that there's a lot of problems to the productivity level, and also now I think the snow cover is decreased. Even our Himalaya, as per the research, the statistics telling that 20% of the glaciers are already lost in the snow cover region of the Himalayan too. So altogether, based on the research, the areas conducted with reference to the CO2 concentration, and then related to the temperature and mean sea level, or these three phenomena they call as the climate change. What they are predicting that in 2025, in another 25 years, the CO2 concentration will lead to maximum 460 ppm. In 2050, it will be maximum 640 ppm. In 2100, in the beginning of the next century, maybe we will reach 1000 ppm. So now I think it's very difficult how we are going to respire. I think it's a very, very question for not for us but for our generations. So these are the problem. You know that the early periods of the independence in the 1940s and 48, and we had nearly 270 to 280 ppm of the carbon dioxide in India, and during 80s it has been slowly progressively increased to 300, and now present state that in the 2020 we have 400 ppm of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So I think how the plants are surviving, it's also a question mark. How I think because every plant has the trapping of this CO2 is at a level. Even we did some basic experiments how at the progressive level of the carbon dioxide concentration with varying concentration, how the plants are adapting and how the trees are adapting. We experimented in the laboratory. So I think this is a phenomena of that increase of the concentration. If the present trend continues, that because of the use of the fossil fuels, that is coal, petrol, diesel, and other allied products, definitely we will reach in the next beginning of the century 1000 ppm is sure. And I think we know also the relation between the concentration temperature also. I think from 1990 have been mentioned. Now the temperature will project to 0.4 to 1.1 degrees centigrade maximum, 2.6 degrees centigrade in 2050, and in the beginning next 2100 it will be 5.8 degrees centigrade. So I think the temperature increase I think is almost changing. And then again the global mean sea level also, I think as per the prediction, and 14 centimeter in 25 and 50 it will be 32, and then 2100 88. Even very recently, 2 days before, the sea water intrudes into the Arabian Sea of the Kerala, and almost entire water been increased to that. And I think the level has become both the urban ecosystem and the marine ecosystem almost in the same, and because of the rise of the sea level in that area. So even the temperature, what I mentioned when I visited to the Europe and Italy, in the northern Italy, and then the Swiss and Germany, and also when I met the Europeans, they said that the temperature what we have now is they say that in other words there's a crazy. they used to say that temperature is rising. They used to say, in other words, it's a crazy, it's increasing like that. Even they could not bear the temperature of the normal 32 to 35 degree. They could not bear the temperature. So think of the our condition, the developing countries like India, 42 degree. So altogether, the reported ranges of the CO2 concentration are estimated with fast carbon cycle models all have improved. So because of that, the melting glaciers, you could see that in the Kilimanjaro and 2006, how it was, and altogether it has been no. I think droughts in Africa also almost has been, the area has been extending like anything and become desert. Even the lake chart are now think there is no lake in that, it almost shrink. So these are the situation, and also the Arctic ice cap could disappear completely. You have seen in many the journals and all that this was projected in the Times London during 2005 of the picture. So these are the problem. I think everyone talking of the polar bears, and not only the polar bears, and also our own. I am going to give more examples of that. Even our own the tropical the animals also bearing the problem of the temperature and climate change. See, this is the one they have projected the polar bear standard on a thin rise, but it doesn't know when it will fell into the water. So such a rapid situation has rise in terms of the greenhouse gases over the past 150 years in the Arctic region. So the climate change, who is the culprit? Who is doing all those things? So mainly human. The human induced climate change is the whole reason, and is projected to changing a lot. So what we are going to do that? So earlier all our the rural areas, and that we have many ponds, pools, lakes, and then all water bodies. Now all these water bodies now I think completely nil. Even in the cities also, there is no water. So most of the cities now, all the lakes and ponds have been occupied by the bus stands and malls and colleges, and then also other the malls. So almost now everything has been changed because of the climate and decrease of the water availability, and then decrease of the water quality in many areas because of the problem related to the flood and drought. And then also we have a problem related to the hydropower. Many times we used to depend on the monsoon to get the hydropower. That will be as a failure. Only maximum in the Indian context, in even to the southern part of the India, we can get the hydropower hardly to the 2 to 3 months. Then rest, it's a question mark. Most of the power plants are still in the sleeping conditions in the hydropower engines. And then altogether biomass production in the forest ecosystem is decreased. And then lot of the problems related to the vectors, as I mentioned, the malaria, the dengue, including the chikungunya, and then waterborne disease. All these things all have been serious to that because of the heat, stress, mortality, and which leads to the threatened nutrition in developing countries and increased extreme weather events. All these happen because of it. I think now even our child now they are realizing all these problems. And also my good friend Professor Armugam will endorse me that I think the climate change also has a decreased agriculture productivity. And as for the statistics, they are telling that 20% of the our production, our total the production of the cereals, pulses have been decreased because of the climatic change. Even though we have been trying a lot to bring that productivity is almost in a world level in a forerunner, but in spite of that, the warming in the tropics and subtropics, which has the adverse impacts on the related to the productivity of the agriculture, yield capacity, and everything. And not only that, the fisheries also have been affected. So altogether, every ecosystem has been changed in the entire scenario of the climate change. And finally, I would like to address here is the climate change and biodiversity. How? So I think the first phase, I think we have seen that the serious impacts of the how the climate is changing and what is the phenomena of the rainfall, what is the precipitation level, and what is the carbon dioxide level, and temperature, all that. All I think have a change on the biodiversity. So the biodiversity means what? The change in the flora, changes in the fauna and then microorganisms. So altogether, it affects, climate change is projected to affect all the aspects of the biodiversity, which has the individual effect, and then on the populations, on the species distribution, as a whole of the ecosystem composition, and not only the structure of the ecosystem, and also it affects the function also. It changes the all the phenomena related to the productivity, primary productivity, photosynthesis function, and then also the cycling of the nutrients. So entire the functional aspects also change. We used to say that the biogeochemical cycling of the nutrients are changed in all aspects of the biodiversity, the resources. So what we had a very beautiful forest. You can see that, and in the second picture you can see that completely yellow, the flower, the cassia, fistula, the flowers. You could see that very thick forest we had earlier. This picture was taken not now, earlier. See that animals, how conducively is living with with the child, with the calf. See the birds, how happily I've been standing on the rock and enjoying the climate with the natural ecosystem. It is not now true. And see the monkey, how it have been happily enjoying the climate. I could see that all the heaven, the matters. See that. And even, as I mentioned, the microorganisms. See, 1 teaspoon of the microbe, the teaspoon of the soil has the hundreds of the nematodes. We can have it. And then in 1 teaspoon of the soil, we could, have nearly 250,000 the algal species. And in 1 teaspoon of the soil, we can have nearly 300,000 of the amoeba. In 1 teaspoon of the soil, we can have nearly 450,000 fungus. In 1 teaspoon of the soil, we can have the millions of actinomycetes population. In 1 teaspoon of the soil, again, they are having millions of bacteria, belongs to Coccus bacillus and Spirillum and Vibrio. So all these have been Earth's biodiversity. You could see that surrounded by the human also. So we used to always say that the biodiversity is the plants, animals, including microorganisms, that also having one component of the biodiversity is the human. You could see that the whole my family here. So the biodiversity resources are very rich in India. We are supposed to be the 7th largest country in the world, and then circumference of more than 15,200 kilometers, and having a long coastlines in both sides. I think we have a triangular way, that Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, and then Indian Ocean. All together we have, according to the Champion and SAR, and we have nearly no country in the world we have such a major forest types, 16 forest types. No other, even the Amazon forest. So we could not show such that diversity is there in the forest in India, and which is supposed to be in the tropical region, subtropical region. And we have 221 minor forests, and then having total forest area of nearly 75.18 million hectares of the land, 45,000 plants. Among that, 15,000 are flowering plants. We have other lower forms of the plants, which includes gymnosperm, birds, bryophytes, algae, fungal, and bacteria too. All these we have in number. I think we have nearly more than 250 genera of the flowering plants, which belongs to some of the primitive families. And then we have very hot spot. We can say that the Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats, and then also the Himalayan region. We are very rare. The largest families of the plants are worthful in that region. In all these regions, which belongs to the different number of the family and subspecies. And some of the species are, you could see that the other one, which are only in India, where there is no other in the world. It's endemic to only in our Indian context, Western Ghats. So in Western Ghats, we call it as one of the 18 mega biodiversity of the world. So it starts from the Gujarat to Kanyakumari at a stretch of nearly 1,600 kilometers. having the area, total area of the nearly 1,60,000 square kilometers in area. So we have the highest peak, Coorg, Nilgiris, Annamalais, Palanis, Agastya Malais, all these things. And then all these are the type of the ranges. We have the different types of the plants, species, and nearly Western Ghats alone have nearly 4,000 flowering plants. And among that, I think 58 the species are only two in Western Ghats. We can all see that. So here the endemism is more. We call the phenomena called endemism is more only in the Western Ghats, more than 75% in the world. So all what I mentioned is in the theory. What we heard all mentioned, so 5 to 50 million of the biodiversity resources, what I mentioned, 80,000 species, 40,000 species, 50,000 plants belongs to the flowering types, all only in the text. We can read, but all now it's not the real situation here, all has been lost because of the number one, I could say that the man-made cause, and then also by the environmental problems like what I mean related to the climate change by the pollution, global warming, ozone depletion. So all together they have been lost. So what we are projecting that even we can have the problem of the war we can overcome in Nagasaki and Hiroshima in the coast, but not lost the erosion of the biodiversity. So such species have been mentioned that. So what I have projected that species once lost from the earth, once lost from the face of the earth cannot be brought back. So that is the situation. So the loss of the biodiversity is neither habitat is essential for the survival of the species is destroyed or a particular species are destroyed. So altogether you can see that all by the man-made action or for want of the some of the either for the skin or for the tusk and so on. So altogether, I think the African elephants is an example. I think the population has been drastically decreased, and nearly it was earlier it was 1,30,000 elephants were in the African the forest. Now only 65,000. So 50,000 of the African the elephants were lost because of the tusk. And then lions and tigers are being hunted. You could see that all the conveyor belt of the foreign Europe and then the other countries, our skin of the animals, our tusk of the animals. So and then all exported from here. So habitat was destroyed, all become extinct. So the extinct is because the man-made cause and then also the natural cause because of the various reasons. So the loss of biodiversity, and within this period, according to the UNEP, roughly 16 to 20 million hectares of the tropical forest are being burnt. And then because of the burning activities, the rate of the deforestation is at the rate of 21.5 hectares per minute. 21.5 hectares per minute. And that's why we used to say that out of the total geographical area of the India, once it was we have nearly 33% as far as now we have only very limited to 23%. And even among the 23% of the present forest cover, only 10% of the forest cover which brings actual rain to the rivers. So this is a situation. So all together, what the man-made action, the gift of the pollution. So all these things not only changes the climate and also has leads to a lot of problems in and around the urban ecosystem, as I mentioned in the earlier. So I think this is one. I think with the cough, it has been come out from this one, and it doesn't know that when it will kill. Even the last 1 month during the pandemic period, also the lot of animal population has been, in some way or been escaped from the human action because of the no invasion of the human into the forest. It is happily living in the forest. So, in addition to that, a lot of problems related to the toxic chemicals used, pesticides used, and then various other actions. So, what altogether the man-made action and consequent to the climate change, now the species extinction. So, nearly 900 vertebrate species have been extinct every 1 million years during the last 200 million years, and roughly 90 species every century. According to the IUCN, where I am serving as an expert for the Southeast Asia, we have the accountability of all these things, the extinction rate. Here, the higher plants, one species become extinct in every 27 years. Out of that, 75 birds and mammals already have been become extinct in recent years. So the loss of the single species is a tragedy. So it is a life the life of all those is a irreplaceable genetic resources. It's a storehouse. So extinction is an irreversible process, and when a species become extinct, it sets off a cascade the extinctions. So the world biodiversity is under the risk. I think in the coming next 3 decades, I think we are going to show, I think all even our tiger and an elephant and then our lion and then our all the animals, we used to show as only the skeleton pictures of that in the area where the people used to meet in a park or in a pizza, etc. So in the last 400 years, 120 species of the mammals and 225 species of birds have become extinct in the world. So altogether, IUCN, as I mentioned, they have categories that what are the species are taken into the normal. So because of all these actions, the climate change and the man-made action, everything, there are populations which are now under the control. That is a normal. There are some species which are, I think, whose populations move into endangered category in the near future. It's called the vulnerable. For example, the blue sheep, the Asiatic elephant, and then the Gangetic dolphin. So which are all now comes under the vulnerable category. And then rare, the Asiatic cheetah, the pink-headed duck and tutu bird. And these populations neither endangered nor vulnerable, but are at considerable risk. So these populations becomes now rare here. And see this, the Asiatic cheetah is supposed to be one of the fastest runner in the world among the animals. And then endemic. So these species are endemic only to the particular area. For example, the Andaman deer, the first one. And then next is the Nicobar Pigeon, and then Andaman wild pig. So all these now have been a very serious problem because of the various reasons. So how many species are threatened? So nearly 16,119 are threatened with extinction. Animals, 7,000 around. Plants and lichens, 8,000 around. Birds, 1 in 8. Mammals, 1 in 4. Amphibians, 1 in 3. Turtles and tortoise, 42%. Conifer forest species, 1 in 4. The cycadales, cycad species, 52%. So these are some of the ancient group of plants we call the primitive plants. I think it's very, very rare to see all these things now all become very, very rare. So what they projected is as of now 50 to 50 million biodiversity resources. Now I think so far only 1.5 million has been described. Even among the 1.5 million species described so far, I think this list will minus it. I think nothing is there. So the day will come soon that we are going to see our banyan tree, our cycas tree, our ficus tree, all only in the park, like in the ornamental shape, which I showed in the right side. So the day is not far off. This will come soon to see all these plants. I think will shown to the generations only in the parks like this. So which species are threatened? So mammals 33%, birds 30%. And when you start talk about these 30%, now in Tamil we used to call the chittukuruvi. Otherwise we call the sparrows. Almost the sparrows population has been lost because of all the cell phone towers, all the electromagnetic radiation effects. Almost we lost many species. Even the honey bees also have been threatened because of the electric tower, and then also the cell phone mobile towers. So the amphibians 29%. So almost every population marine species, fisheries, all have been threatened, affecting the seabirds, marine mammals, and other marine species altogether. So animals. Come to animals, I think we should mention because of the climate change. I mentioned that the first the polar bear, and then also the penguin, the beautiful penguin, and then also the frog, bullfrog, all have been now threatened animals which are all in the danger. So in addition to that, the plants are also in danger. We mentioned what are those in endangered category and the vulnerable category and rare category. Now almost 10% of the world the vascular, with having the xylem and phloem of the everyone having absorption capacity from the soil nutrients and water, all have been almost retained. So the extinction rate is increasing and increasing like anything, and altogether the ecosystem, that ultimate one, is threatened by what? Number one, by the climate change. So not only that, it also has serious effects to the coral reefs, mangroves, coastal wetlands, the remnant ecosystem, some other ecosystem which are with the restricted the distribution high latitude and also in the high altitude ecosystem. So the extinction is more phenomena due to that. I think the best one, the international arena has been focusing is the polar bear. So it requires to live a pack of ice to live, and then it might eventually go extinct in the world, in the wild, in the natural condition. In I think almost now we could see that, and then same thing also the sea turtles. It normally used to come to breed in the same island as their birth, but now it could not go extinct on some islands as beaches are flooded or lost because of the other regions. So because of the rainfall pattern changes, it also has been changed. So the climate change is a conflict. It has a relation. So tens of millions of people are displaced because of this change and low-lying delta areas. And then even now the focus is that, and one projection is that soon some of the islands in and around the Indian subcontinent will disappear or will submerge in the ocean. They are projecting. And even the Maldives, I think they already, it's now, it is again, I don't know whether it is true or not, they already moved with the Indian government that they want space to live in the Indian the area where they want to move. If suppose the problem comes submerged in the water. So they now wanted to live and they wanted to move. So tens of billions of millions of people are displaced and then they're moving to anywhere. So the water shortages in areas already, with water shortages in the natural, resources depleted areas have been altogether. So climate change coupled with other local, global environmental issues can lead to the local and regional conflicts also. So the conflict later leads to what? The climate change altogether, not only, as I mentioned, the plants, the animals, which are great, which are threatened, rare, extinction categories, and all together. But what about the part of the biodiversity, human? So the future changes in climate is inevitable. If the present trend continues of using fossil fuels, unless otherwise we find alternative solution for all these fossil fuels, the climate, I think, definitely will change. As I predicted that in the next coming beginning of the years, we may reach 1000 ppm of the carbon dioxide. Sure. So what required is the adaptation, and then the mitigation activities are essential. So what? So the poor countries face the greatest stress from the climate change. See that global warming which leads to first affect the poor to the poor countries. The third world countries. Don't think that only the third world countries are standing in the queue, but we are also standing next to them in the queue, like queue in the cinema theater for buying the tickets. So we are standing behind them. So this is the situation of that. So realizing all those things, we have so many commitment we made, and then in the Kyoto Protocol, I think we met, and then we have made all the signature for the commitment of the concomitant reduce of the greenhouse gas emissions, and then at least in the 2008 to 18 they 12 they mentioned 5%. They have made a flexible mechanism for the carbon trading, land use change and forestry activities they have promoted, and then funding mechanism also they have developed for attempting the greenhouse afforestation activities. I mean, green cover activities like afforestation or the deforestation. So what we require altogether potential actions. So the potential action is the what? Number one is the energy efficient and conservation. So what we required is the, I think earlier we used to say that having one bicycle in a house, I think is a pride in those days. And later, one small bike, a small bike, that will be, I mean, bike or scooter. It's a pride for our Indian family. Then next to that, as in highway of the motorbikes, like Honda companies, and then other companies, okay, they came. They, I mean, they have pride for the Indian people. And then to a car, one single car instead of the bikes. Now every family, at least they have one car, sometimes maximum three cars for their children too. So I think altogether, think of that how much oil in terms of the petrol either or the diesel they consume, how much the carbon dioxide releases into the atmosphere. Think of that one. You won't believe that in Madurai city we have taken statistics that in every day nearly 50,000 two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers and trucks are passing through Madurai city. And every day 50,000 vehicles are passing into the city, 50,000. Think of that in a small town of Madurai. How could it manage the release of the carbon dioxide from these 50,000? Same thing in Chennai. I think it's one of the metropolitan cities of the India. Nearly 5 lakhs vehicles. 5 lakh vehicles are all together. It is flying inside the forest, inside the Chennai area. Think of that how much the carbon dioxide releases in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions. So altogether, what we need is the efficient vehicles. I mean, efficient vehicles and then reduce the use of the vehicles in Saturdays and Sundays. At least now, I think due to the sorry, pandemic situation, we cut short all the flying Bina into the forest, into the urban areas. So efficient buildings, an efficient coal plant, altogether we need. So what required is I mean, shift to the coal power to gas power. So for want of the electricity. And then the efficient mechanism is that I think CO2 capture and storage. We have to see the mechanism at the power plant itself. So that we need. And then the nuclear fission, the nuclear power instead of the coal power, we can switch. And more reliable the situation is the non-conventional or otherwise we call it the new and renewable, I mean the energy that can be used from either from the solar, wind or the bio. So these are the three sources, I mean, including the waterfall in terms of the hydro energy that can be derived. So that means we also shift all those things. I think now the Indian government is taking a lead role. Very recently in the pandemic period, COVID-19 situation, we have developed a huge area of in Rajasthan and Gujarat. We developed a solar house in city inside that where the full power can be derived from the solar the panels they have developed in the desert areas. So what we require is the forest. The forest and agriculture soils should be kept for conducive, sustainable way. For that, we need to reduce the deforestation, plus the reforestation, and then afforestation and new plantation and conserve the tillage activities. So altogether, what we projected is that, so I think every year, at least we think of 2% of the forest cover. If we, I mean, start now, I think we will reach definitely the original forest cover of the 33% at least in the 2050. So that's what our projections are telling. So in altogether in the global level, the total area of the Australia, the land cover should be forested with the afforestation or the reforestation. Then the world will reach a level of the carbon dioxide to the original, the 280 ppm in the worldwide. That was the projection they were given, that how to sequester, how to offset the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere for them. So already most of the, as I mentioned, the car producing companies, they have made a commitment for the reduction of the emissions. Even they started in the 2010 onwards. Most of the IBM, Ford, Shell, Toyota, all the car producing companies, they made and they modified their engines that suit to the reduce of the emission into the atmosphere in the engine itself. So the mitigation of the global warming is most essential. One, as I mentioned, the conservation, reduce the energy needs, recycling is most important. They have to think of the alternative energy sources, as I mentioned, nuclear, wind, geothermal, hydroelectric, and solar. So these are all these. One next also the. So I think now the scientists are working on the how to already prevalent of the CO2 into the geological formations. So how to, lead to the carbon dioxide of the various levels they were mentioned here. I think depleted oil and gas reservoirs is one phenomena for the storage, and then CO2 in the enhanced oil and gas recovery, and then deep saline formation, either in the offshore or on the onshore. And also we can use of the storage the CO2 in the enhanced coal bed methane recovery areas. So altogether we have the four mechanism to store the CO2 in the geological formation itself. And finally, so the increased what we require of the current the population of the India, for example, 135 crores of population, what we require is increased access to energy, of course, is a critical, and later it leads to the poverty alleviation and economic growth. So climate change undermines development and environmental sustainability. So what we require is a collaborative effort, not an individual, not an organization. So it is a collective collaborative effect involving governments, private sector, the financial institutions, NGOs, and the research community. So everyone has to take a responsibility to combat all the activities of the greenhouse gas emissions, and that leads to the climate change. Now also the bank can also take a critical role in assisting the client countries that reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, and then develop a robust market which can be reduce the CO2 emission, and that can be worked. And also there will be a cost effective and equitable the solution should be adopted. But what we require is the political will. The political will, and it is a modern leadership is the required, and all together for that. So already the India is lead in the entire the world, and we have concomitant commitment for the reduction of the CO2, altogether the greenhouse gas emissions in the world, and I think we have taken a model in the entire country. So I think everyone has to take real role in that. And so hereafter, hear no, see no, speak no, global warming. We should not. So world is in your hand. Thank you for listening.